Are there any questions for George Clinton?
George!
Question one. Did you describe yourself as being in the business of rhythm and business? Sort of generally, can you just... That's right. Can you tell us what that means?
Any percentage. Any percentage of you. Is as good as the whole pie. Any percentage of you is as good as the whole pie.
Hi, I'm Dan Booth, and I've just given a presentation about George Clinton, hip-hop, and sampling and copyright trolls, specifically Armin Baladian. One of the most difficult, one of the most conflicted artist-label relationships in the history of recorded music. They've gone back and forth against each other in the courts for decades, and essentially Armin Baladian contends that he owns the rights to the compositions and the recordings of a slew of funkadelic records from the 70s and early 80s, and George Clinton, on the other hand, says actually there was that's not quite right. Many key documents were forged, and the courts have agreed and have handed back to Mr. Clinton many of those recordings and the rights to them. So in the meantime, Armin Baladian had sued hundreds of musicians for hundreds of different songs in which they sampled George Clinton compositions and won an awful lot of money in default judgments against a lot of those musicians. And many of those cases, it turns out, he didn't have those rights and didn't have a leg to stand on, or shouldn't have, in a court of law.
We think of storytelling as being something that we use with children. But you just get any group of adults together. Everybody likes to hear what's happened to somebody else.
Mr. Clinton is trying to clean the story up and make sure that everybody knows he's not responsible for any of those lawsuits in the first place, and that he would be happy to negotiate reasonable licenses with people. He's not in the business of going out and suing people. Apparently, Mr. Baladian has been claiming copyright and filing with the Copyright Office in cases where he didn't have a right. Get out there and protect your rights. Make sure you know what people are saying about your work, and get in touch with people who have the copyrights, and make sure that you know from the direct source that you're getting a license from the people who you should be, and not paying somebody who doesn't have a right to claim.
Doesn't have a right to claim. Doesn't have a right to claim. Doesn't have a right to claim.
Why are a lot of people so deprived of the truth? Why are a lot of children being robbed of their youth? The names, the sounds, the rules, the grounds. To us a circus, we are clowns.
Funky, let's jam. Dance to the come, dance to the come, dance to the conspiracy theory. Dance to the come, dance to the come, dance to the conspiracy theory.
I think there's an important issue of what's the appropriate boundary of control with the copyright. What kind of enforcement of copyright is fair and what kind isn't? And there are these statutory damages awards that you can get in a copyright case that are pretty draconian, pretty hardcore, up to $150,000 if they can prove that you did something intentionally wrong. where that's often more than a sample would be worth.
When Terminator X sampled from Body Language,
$3 million.
$3 million?
That's what they sued him for. I don't like the guy either. The guy that sued him, that's the same guy I'm fighting with now.
Right. So, but you said at the time, they sampled this song, it didn't make any money for us, didn't make any money for Bridgeport, which is the guy we're talking about here. Suddenly it's making money for Sony and Bridgeport suing, so I called up Chuck D and Flava Flav, and we got on CNN, and I told him I didn't care. I did it for hip-hop.
The lawyer got on MTV and said that I was suing Public Enemy, blah, blah, for $3 million. I had to make my statement, so we went on CNN and like radio and said, I'm not. The case was dropped.
There winds up being these weird, sort of perverse incentives to let people infringe and then sue them instead of working out a license, and that happens far too often as well. There winds up being these weird, sort of perverse incentives to let people infringe and then sue them instead of working out a license, and that happens far too often as well. So copyrights are now being used in a way that doesn't foster creativity and doesn't foster the useful arts, as it says in the copyright clause of the Constitution. Instead, it's being used to suppress creativity and in the name of an ideal that I think has been distorted.
George, how it go?